welcome to the next episode of The Compass. We're recording today's episode on Tuesday, August 19th. It's getting close to the end of the summer, and so we're going to talk about a little bit about getting ready for the fall. Maybe a little two-part episode. Talk about playing a little defense, getting ready for the fall, and then playing a little offense, what we're looking for in the next episode. So with me, as always, is Sam Pelaez, President, CEO, and CIO of all of Resource Capital. And my name is Derek Macpherson. I'm the executive chairman of all of. It's August 19th. We're getting into the dog days of summer, if you will. Sam, what are we looking at in the portfolio right now as news flow dries up? I think there was like 5 news items on junior stock daily today.
Yeah, so about a month ago, we were talking about what we do over the summer and research certain opportunities that we haven't had the time to do, etc. But come this time of the month and this time of the year, we typically sit down and start thinking about the conference cycle that starts right after Labor Day, and what that means for our portfolio and what it means in terms of looking for new opportunities. And like Derek said, it's a little bit like playing defense and offense. So think about what you currently have. It's defense. So I think that's what we want to focus on today. So things that we have in the portfolio, what we expect them to highlight, announce, or discuss over the next few months. So effectively, what are the targets and catalysts that we see coming before year end? And I think on a separate episode, maybe next week or the week after, we'll do offense, which is sort of, we're walking into these conferences. There's going to be a lot of news flow. What is it that we're looking for? What types of stories are we interested in learning more about? Perhaps we'll mention a few that we've been starting to research but haven't made a decision to invest yet, pending having the chance to sit with them at these conferences. And yeah, sort of like the playbook for the fall season.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, I think it's a little bit, if you want to think about it, it's a little bit of a portfolio review, right? It's like we sit down and look at all the names and what's coming and kind of where we see the value proposition. And I think that's, it's a nice time to do it. Again, a little bit quieter, but also it's something that you have to do regularly. You have to constantly be evaluating every investment in your portfolio and deciding whether it's got room to run beyond where you are and can, it's the risk profile matches the potential return, right? That's always the key thing. I think that's kind of, as we're going to start today, is we're going to start talking about our portfolio and some of the key names, key catalysts that we see. But some of these, while we're going to talk about a few names in our portfolio where there are key catalysts and things are important, I think a bit of a key element here is that there's some general themes that pretty much after Q2 reporting wraps up, most of the producers report by August 15th, news flow dries up. There's very little news flow the last 2.5 weeks of August, the period that we're in now. It's a time that lots of people go on vacation. Financing slow down, everything kind of slows down. When I was a research analyst, this was a great time to go on vacation because you didn't have to worry about getting hit over the head with a press release the moment you landed wherever on the destination you were going to. And so that's what, from my perspective, that's what I'm looking for. And I think there are a few themes here that you need to I guess, keep in mind as we do this. One is, I think a major one is drill results. All of your seasonal explorers, your summer seasonal explorers, right? So Triangle, a lot of Yukon companies, a lot of some of the basin companies would have summer drill programs, although they have winter drill programs as well. Those drill programs started in April, May, June. That means that we should be getting first results. Most companies are going to hold their results until Labor Day, until after Labor Day. So you're not going to see results till those sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. I highly advise, just for the record, for any of those junior mining companies out there listening, do not release your companies on the Tuesday after results on Tuesday after Labor Day. It's the first day back to school for the majority of for all the investors with kids. They're not going to be paying attention to your news at 7:00 in the morning. They're going to be trying to figure out how to get their kids out the door for that first day of school. But other than that,
and you run the risk of your press release being number 230th.
Exactly, right? Like 100 companies put out news. I used to hate it as an analyst, right? You're like, And the other one is the Monday before Beaver Creek, right? There'll be about 100 companies that put out news that day as well. But we're expecting a lot of news. So I guess one of those big themes is drill results. And so maybe from our perspective, Sam, and for all of us, let's talk about a couple of the names that we expect to see drill results from.
I was thinking we may do this just like on a scale from larger holding to lesser holding. But now that you propose that we do it this way, let's run with it. Because I was thinking Omai is the largest holding, but Omai has been releasing drill results all throughout the summer and essentially quite frequently over the last 2 years. There is.
I think there are some. Sorry, Sam. With Omai really fits into that second category, which we haven't, which we're going to get to, which is sort of major development catalysts that are due, and there is the resource. But we'll talk about that later. Now, I guess the thought process is stick to drill results first.
Okay, so if we sort by drill results and then sort by weighting in our portfolio, let's start with Bravo mining.
Yep.
So for all those who don't remember Bravo, that's the PGM/nickel resource in Brazil. It's quite an exceptional resource. It's already over 50 million ounces, probably on its way to more than 20 million. They had two big themes for the summer, or for the year, let's call it. One was a PEA on the PGM resource, which they have put out as of July. But the second, and perhaps the most interesting one at this point, is the drill program targeting the potential IOCG discovery that they had a year ago. So if you recall, off the resource, but on the same license, they drilled these EM conductors, and the best intercept to date, it's about 11 meters at 14% copper plus. So, quite an exceptional intercept. They're chasing down 6 or 7, I think there are about 15 different targets. They're focusing on the first 5 or 6, if I remember correctly. They've been drilling this for the last couple of months, and we have yet to see results. Now, they're not drilling very aggressively. I imagine they're drilling with one single rig. But still, over the last 4 to 6 months, they should have accumulated a decent number of holes. And we anticipate that we are going to see some of those results hit the wires, potentially as soon as the first weeks of September. So that's one for us that we're keeping an eye out on. Obviously, the valuation is underpinned by the PGM resource, but the addition of this potential IOCG, tonnage or resource, especially after that 11.5 meters at 14% copper, if they can build tonnage around something like that, that'd be quite spectacular, and certainly would add to the value of the story.
And interestingly, add a second commodity dimension, which I think is an important aspect with PGMs just starting to sort of crest over the edge of people caring about them again. Adding some copper, which is a little more popular, might help.
This is a region in Brazil that has a history of base metals discoveries and base metal mines. So it's certainly not. Didn't really come out of nowhere, but certainly that's the key catalyst we're looking for with Bravo.
I guess I don't know if this is exactly the right order from a weighting perspective, but the next one on my list from drill results is Sterling Metals. Sterling obviously had a good run lately. I think very interestingly, they put out some results earlier this year that, while they weren't spectacular sort of porphyry discovery results, they were very good. And they sort of lean to the fact that they might be onto a potentially large porphyry discovery, basically just off the Trans-Canada Highway. So something that's very interesting. Stock's had a good run lately, and so that's positive, but it's definitely one where they're drilling again, and so there's drill results. It might be a little bit past conference season before those results actually come out, but certainly results that we're looking for that could be game changing for that stock.
Yeah, just as a reminder for the audience, like this is a past producing site, not specifically this area that they're drilling. But the key element here is the location. This is in northwestern Ontario, very close to the Trans-Canada Highway, in a privileged location for a base metals discovery. And obviously they have some success with the drill rig up to this point. They're just trying to kind of like advance that to the next stage where they can demonstrate that there is enough tonnage and enough upside to continue to drill these targets, which in our view they should be able to demonstrate. So that's one that again we're quite looking forward to those results.
Yeah, I think so. And then maybe lastly on the drill results perspective, is First Nordic, a name that's kind of struggled a bit going into the summer. Basically, had a bit of a financing overhang. People thought they were coming for money. They ended up coming for money. So that's been a bit of a short-term overhang, and then they haven't really had results out this summer. So I think that, or a lot of results out this summer. So I think that that's one where that's a stock that could actually really move this fall as they start to put drill results out. They're well funded now. They're in position to keep advancing it, and the targets look really interesting. I mean, it's kind of I might be overstating this a little bit because they don't, they got lots of drilling to do, but it reminds me a little bit of Rupert in the early days. Doing all this bot drilling, figured out where the structures were in the targets and had grade, and then started to drill it off. I think that's an opportunity.
Yeah, no, they control quite a bit of land. Pretty long strike length on that very prospective area. Certainly severely under-drilled and underexplored for the potential that it has in Sweden. I think it's a matter of if it's a matter of when, not if. They're gonna start hitting stride and some of these interesting intercepts. And again, as a reminder, this is a company that has a joint venture with Agnico on an existing resource, and they're just exploring not necessarily the extension of that, but just like the regional area where this deposit sits. So there is also a potential, and at the risk of straddling to our next theme, there is a potential for some corporate action there that could potentially result in them controlling the resource, and obviously that would move them very quickly forward into a development stage scenario.
I think another name, well, it probably be remiss not to mention it, and that's actually has some drill results recently that were very good in the Nordic countries in Scandinavia is Orion. Everyone's been sitting around waiting for Orion. Again, back to the next theme, which is the big events or transformational things. They've been waiting for this potential Rupert Orion consolidation and the JV to get work itself out. And I think the market has been absolutely sleeping on the discovery they've made at Karaselka. They continue to have excellent drill results from there. I think a year ago, you and I sat down with Maddie and went through the sections and everything kind of in detail. And that is, and they keep, they've drilled and continue to hit there. I mean, they're drilling slowly. They're being prudent with their treasury, but they continue to hit, and I think it's a significant discovery. And so we're looking, I mean, as much as I'd like to see that, the resolution, to kind of create instant value, for lack of a better description, I think that they have an opportunity to drive the share price higher in the interim as they continue, if they could prove out that Karaselka's as they prove to the market that the Karaselka is the real deal that we think it is.
Yeah, no, and to your point, it was exactly a year, well, not exactly a year ago. It was at the conferences in Colorado in September last year that we sat down and we were sort of like given this overview of what the drill program and the plans for drilling and the focus for the company outside of this JP negotiations and the corporate activity that may happen over there. And we're seeing the results now. And frankly, the most recent results are quite spectacular. And you've covered the Finnish names as an analyst before, and you're familiar with the area. You know exactly these types of intercepts that they're putting out in that type of context zone, 5 kilometers away from Rupert, but on the 100% owned ground. These are valuable intercepts. Even absent, again, all this corporate activity that may be happening on the side, it's great that you sort of like bring it back, and investors shouldn't be, shouldn't miss these types of updates because this is where the company's going next, and it's quite spectacular to this point.
I honestly think the market's, in particularly in Orion's case, I think the market's sleeping on that, on the carousel discovery. I think it's been distracted by that M&A or corporate activity potential, and I think that if they as they continue to hit there, they'll create value for shareholders and make this thing more valuable when the consolidation eventually happens. And so I'm glad to see them out there being aggressive.
Think about, Rupert eventually will be resolved and will be built, and this is 5 kilometers away. Last time, we were sort of speculating how many kilometers away. I guessed it was 20, and then we pulled up the maps, and it's certainly less than 10. Imagine if you have a drill intercept like this, on top of all the great ones that they've had in the last year and a half they've been active here. Imagine if you have this type of intercepts in Red Lake or in any sort of like better known mining jurisdiction. The stock would be flying, and I think that's what people are missing here, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, that certainly isn't all the names in our portfolio that have drill results coming, but I think in the interest of time, we'll move to the next category. So the other thing that you're going to see a lot of over the next couple of weeks is, and I'm gonna kind of break it into two categories, Sam, is development catalysts you could control, and then development catalysts you can't control, right? So that's more corporate activity, M&A, and we could talk a little bit about that. But the development catalysts that companies could control, so that's like resource updates, PEAs, like PFSs, feasibility studies. Those are the things that are a ton of work. It takes a huge amount of effort for these companies to put these things together. Take months and months and generally tens of millions of dollars of effort. But when they come, they are key. And I think that's, if we're going portfolio weighting, the resource update that we're waiting for, that we're really excited about coming based on the drill results that we've seen is Omai. I think there's a pretty good, I'm really looking forward to it.
And I think, if people have been paying attention to Elaine and the way when she gives the presentations on Omai, it is very clear that the previous resource is missing, it was missing certain, drilling that would certainly enhance the resource. That drilling has taken place. If you look at the reports on the drill holes, you can tell exactly where some of these have gone. But also, she's been mining extensions of the pit in a few directions. I don't want to say every direction, but in a few directions. And I don't think you have to be a genius to know that there's going to be more tonnage. I think the question is how that tonnage relates to grade and how that ends up in ounces. It's certainly going to be more tonnage. How many more ounces than the previous resource? Impossible to know. But I think for me, the exciting thing is that, the drill holes keep coming. The mineralization has been proven to continue beyond what was drilled before. The company has hit some of the wider intercepts to date at depth. And it just feels like it's just creeping, getting better and better just in a slow way. Like every drill hole just advances it this little bit more. And this resource is, I think, it will be the pivot moment for the company to graduate into the top tier of the gold development projects out there.
I think that's I happen to know a little bit more than you do, but as a director, but and fully biased we're fully biased in this position. We're super long and and I'm a director, but I think that's a key thing to point to, Sam. Right? There was the original, as we started, as I started drilling this sort of drill campaign post the last resource. Part of it was to fill in those gaps in the resource. Right? There were just blocks of waste that were waste because they were, there just wasn't enough drill density to pull them in. So a lot of that has been, obviously that's been infilled, and so you get a lift from that. But the results we've seen over the last, I want to say 3, 4, 5 months, around the pit, below the pit, higher grades. That's really, that's what people should be looking at as like, as the where the big change is going to be. And I think it's pretty exciting time for Omai. The other thing they have going, and I think this is actually, I would actually put it as almost as a development catalyst versus a drill result, but it is a drill hole, right? And Elaine is taking a big swing and drilling that deep hole underneath everything, sort of proving that the Wenot pit goes to depth. Those results are coming, and I think that is, or sorry, those results aren't coming. The hole isn't to depth yet, but the purpose of that hole isn't that they hit, I mean, while would be great if they hits great. The key is that it hits structure, and if they can hit structure at that depth and prove that the everything goes down there, it puts a big bullseye on that company, because it suddenly goes from being, what post this resource is, maybe a little bit larger, to something that could be, mined for 20 to 40 years, which, puts it very quickly in the tier 1 category.
If you don't know how much we like the company, please look at our latest press release.
Yeah.
See how concentrated we are in that position.
Moving on from that, from Omai, the other big development catalyst is coming for us is Arizona Sonora.
We've been big fans of George Ogilvy and his entire team, and part of that is because things just seem to happen. Like when he's in charge. Things move along. I know it's been a few years, but the number of things that have happened within Arizona Sonora over the last 3 years, it's quite impressive. Just this summer, they bought back a royalty. They engaged a consultant to help them put the project financing package together. They're buying back some land nearby, because they think they're going to need it when they end up with the final PFS. And the tonnage that they ultimately want to process, they're going to need more land. So they're thinking ahead for all these things. But in terms of development catalysts, I think we're going to have both a resource update, but more than that, just the more advanced version of the PEA that they put out a few months ago, which is when we, on this same show, sort of labeled it how do we label it? Like tier 1-ish?
Yeah, we said it was sitting on the border of tier 1, tier 2, I believe was the exact the exact definition. But in a world where there aren't a lot of good copper development projects, that's great.
Well, yeah, and in this world they have another copper development project adjacent to it. So I think just if you look at it regionally and a consolidated view, it's certainly tier 1. But I think for Arizona Sonora in particular, we are expecting the PFS that would validate all of the assumptions on the PEA with obviously the higher rigor that's required for a PFS. I think that's going to be a very important catalyst, because it sets the benchmark for what the company can achieve going forward. And again, if you're reading between the lines with the purchasing land, buying back the royalty, things that typically a developer can't really do because the cost of capital is too high, I think you can tell that they see how much of value addition these little things bring to the project. So the PFS hopefully comes in as good as we expect it to be, and essentially puts this in a straight path to construction, frankly.
That's certainly, that PFS is key. It's also, obviously there's the story's a little bit complicated because of the option agreements, etc. It's really going to set the table for how things play out between Rio and Hud Bay, and what happens going into the end of the year. I think this is a name we think is worth a lot more than its share price reflects, which reflects our current portfolio weighting to it. So now I guess those are the catalysts those development catalysts that are within the control of the companies. We should probably talk a little bit about ones that are maybe outside the control of the companies, but might get before the conference, right? It's very typical that, just before Beaver Creek or just before Denver, which is the week after, we get a significant M&A catalyst or significant M&A transaction or something to that effect. And so I think that maybe let's talk about some of those in the portfolio that could be nice, positive surprise wins, I guess, for lack of a better description.
I think before we talk about like outright takeovers, one that's of interest to me is the one that pertains to Sailfish. So Sailfish is a royalty company that we are invested in. They have an asset that's currently paying, so that it's a cash flowing company, very nicely buying back stock, and effectively doing all of the right things a company with cash should do. But their biggest resource in a royalty sense is tied to the Spring Valley mine. And that Spring Valley mine has been moving ahead towards development, and it's now in receipt of the final environmental permits. I don't know if this is federal or state of Nevada, but the point being that as the asset continues to move along, we think it's a prime candidate for a takeover. The asset itself, it's currently owned by a private equity fund, and it'd be for the royalty company and for us as shareholder, would be better served if that asset was on the balance sheet of a public company where there's more visibility about the plans, the timing, and the intention to proceed with the construction. The rumor is that there's an ongoing process where companies are evaluating the opportunity. So potentially, a catalyst on that front could be very positive for Sailfish, because then it brings that sort of dormant royalty, brings it into the forefront and into an active development scenario, which obviously accrues a certain amount of value should accrue a certain amount of value for the market cap and then for the company.
It's kind of a good point. It's an interesting point, right? Because it's M&A, but it's not M&A. What people forget about M&A, they think about all the assets that are sitting in their public company. Like for us, one of them would be Troilus, right? That's one that we expect that has potential to be taken out. And maybe as early as maybe one of those names that gets taken out ahead of the conferences. But I think that transaction, there's assets out there that aren't sitting in public companies that have a lot of value, and Spring Valley is a fairly attractive asset, and the royalty Sailfish has on it is attractive as well. Our rough numbers is it's valued. I mean, it doesn't have quite the longevity of what's recently traded with the Arthur project or Silicon Merlin, but it will cash flow more in the short term, I guess, for lack of a better description, and it will be in production sooner. So valuation wise, probably not that far off what's been paid for Silicon Merlin.
Yes.
And so if that any kind of visibility, the more visibility that gets out of that, especially for development plans, I think that's good. The other one, I mentioned Troilus as an M&A target, but the other thing there on Troilus is permitting. I think that's a key element. There's been, I guess, a view that the Troilus project might be one of the ones that gets ends up in the top 10 projects for the federal government, that gets sort of fast tracked. And if that would happen, they'd probably get their permits sooner than expected, which would be really positive. Don't know if that's going to happen or not, and it is the government, so don't count on anything happening quickly. But I think that's certainly those are the types of catalysts that you could get that aren't out, for the most part, outside the company's control, right? A study or something like that is within, but getting your permits in hand. And I think that's actually for Troilus in particular, I think that's a key catalyst for it being eventually taken out.
Absolutely. Permitting wise, I can't think of, obviously most of the stories we're thinking about have permitting timelines, but I don't think there's one that is as sensitive to permitting at this point as Troilus that comes to mind.
Well, I think that, if you were looking at Troilus as a third party and wanted to buy the company, it's permits. At this point, they're already done the feasibility study. They're at the permitting phase. The permits are a major de-risking point. And the reality is you don't want Troilus probably to draw down on their financing package, right? You want, if you're a company, you have a lower cost if you're a large company that are going to build this, probably have some cash on the balance sheet. As we've talked about, when we talked about Q2 results, a lot of them do. And so you don't want them to draw in on their financing package, or maybe not on all parts of it. And so then all of a sudden you need to go to, you want to build it, not them. You want to do that. So that becomes a key, I guess, from a timing perspective.
Right.
Maybe looking, I guess, from an M&A targets perspective, what do you think what do you think of the portfolio might not exist at the end of September? We talked about Troilus already. That's a possibility. We talked a little bit about Orion Rupert. Maybe that gets resolved by maybe I'll putting all those people in the same ski resort or same hotel as at Denver helps accelerate that process.
I mean, there's, obviously the Agnico is the biggest player in both the Orion Rupert story and in the First Nordic story, but don't underestimate the role that B2Gold has to play in that. Obviously, B2Gold is the 70% partner, JV partner of Orion on that ground that effectively is required for the Rupert development to be done as efficiently and cost effectively as possible. And they're pouring gold now in Nunavut, so they're past the biggest sort of development part of their current cycle, and they by year end when this is fully commissioned, they're gonna have a full crew that just built a mine north of near the Arctic Circle, looking for another place to go, and why not Finland? I still think Agnico is obviously in the driver's seat on that one, but don't discount what what B2Gold, the card that B2Gold could play into all of this.
Yeah, and don't forget that there's always that possibility for a surprise player in a lot of these things. Probably the only real buyer that is off the board right now is Dundee. I think they're mid-tier, that potential buyer, and maybe Equinox. They're probably digesting the Valentine Lake transaction and the startup of Greenstone. So I think that other than those two companies, everyone else has got piles of cash on the balance sheet because they're doing well. Whether it's Centerra, B2's just finished a build, so maybe they're a little bit more stressed, but they're involved there. Kinross,
Like so.
Lundin Gold. There's lots of people with, I guess, cash burning a hole in their pocket.
It's funny, this Trump Putin Alaska summit. I'm deviating, but I'm coming back. Trust me. They were showing the maps as to where all the military jets from Russia were flying over Kamchatka and all that kind of like northeastern Siberia. And I got reminded of Kupol, the legacy asset that where Kinross really made a ton of its money out of before it was sold to a Russian group as part of the sanctions divestiture and everything. But Kupol was built by Bema Gold, so the expertise in building these types of assets at or near the Arctic Circle within the B2Gold team, it's quite legendary and comes from more than 20 years ago. So maybe there's an angle there about this whole Finland story with B2Gold. But again, like I said, Agnico is still in control. We'd have to see what happens of as the chessboard moves. But I think B2 was not in a position to be aggressive in any shape or form, but the longer time goes by, the stronger their position as they obviously ramp down all the construction activity in Nunavut.
And to be 100% clear, having been to Akari, this would be the easiest build of those two names that you just mentioned. Like where Back River and Kupol are remote to say the least. You could drive a Toyota Corolla to Akari. So that's which I did. That's that one. I think the other ones that there seems to be the other thing as far as consolidation, other consolidation opportunities. A newer name in the portfolio for us is Canex. We participated in their most recent financing. And I think that's one that there's a 1 + 1 = 3 or more opportunity. Canex is in Northwest Arizona, an area I'm very familiar with, and they're right next to a company called Gold Basin, which is they basically historically they've been drilling the same project just on either side of the property boundary. Putting them together makes it a legit development asset in the Southwest U.S. And then certainly, and that's where I think that 1 + 1 = 3. That's one where I hope that where we think that there's a potential resolution, and maybe it could come, hopefully come sooner rather than later.
I'm looking forward to the next episode because there's some things brewing here in our minds. I don't know how many specific names we're going to reveal as to things that we're looking to potentially buy, but I think this is a nice setup for that next episode.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the kind of been the portfolio review, what we see coming for the fall, and then the next one is going to be the, what we're looking to add. I guess from our perspective, we trimmed on a few positions over the course of the summer, raised a little bit of cash, and while it's not burning a hole in our pocket, we're looking for opportunities to step. We're looking for opportunities. So look forward to speaking to you all, which will be in a couple of weeks, just ahead of conference season. What we're looking for at those conferences, and hopefully that'll help you guys help you guys as investors as you look at it as well.